primarily just going to talk about some college football right now. And I'm a big ACC guy, and Pitt has a chance at the ACC. Of course, I'm a huge Virginia Tech fan, but Pitt was able to win last week in a very, very important game against Georgia Tech and have another very important game this weekend against Miami. And they've been very sneaky in the ACC, haven't done that well outside the ACC with 2 out of their 3 losses coming to their rivals, their arch rivals of West Virginia, and then just getting the brakes beaten off of them by Notre Dame 2 weeks ago, and then barely losing to Louisville. So they got to win. The Pitt Panthers got to upset Miami, and that's probably my upset of the weekend. We forgot to make our upset picks a little earlier. I just remembered that. It's all good. But that's my upset pick of the weekend is the Pitt Panthers over the Miami Hurricanes in college football. I think they're going to pull up the upset. And I could see Virginia Tech beating UVA this weekend as well in that big rivalry game. And then SMU against Cal. I don't see that as a big rivalry game for rivalry week, but SMU will have to defeat Cal, and Cal do have a big-time home field advantage. They have some crazy fans, surprisingly, out there. You saw them for game day last year, so we'll have to see how they do. But Pitt have a chance. Pitt have a chance of winning the ACC. It seems like nobody wants to win the ACC. The ACC is a horrible conference in college football this season. It doesn't seem like anybody wants to win it. And UVA and SMU control their own destiny. And SMU got to beat Cal, and UVA got to beat Virginia Tech. If UVA was at Virginia Tech, I would guarantee right now that Virginia Tech would win that game. But it isn't in Blacksburg; it's in Charlottesville. So they'll have to head to UVA and face the Cavaliers, the Hokies. So that hopefully that'll be a good game. Pretty sure that's a Friday. No, it's a Saturday night. That's a Saturday night game. But one game that is on Friday is actually Ole Miss. We have the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. And I think more people are talking about the head coach of Ole Miss compared to the game itself and the potential playoff run that Ole Miss could have. Ole Miss are probably having their best season they've ever had, at least in a very, very long time. Lane Kiffin has been around for a long time. He was coaching the Raiders at about 30 years old. He was coaching Tennessee, USC. Then he kind of fell off for a while there, rebuilt at Florida Atlantic, and then came over to Ole Miss, and he's just done fantastic ever since being at Ole Miss. That's why all the attention's on him at the current moment. His record since joining Ole Miss back in 2020 is 54-19, and 2010 through 2019 he went 56 and I mean not him, but Ole Miss went 56 and 64 in that time frame. So they got around the same amount of wins, but way more losses in a decade span compared to just a half a decade that Lane Kiffin has been in charge of Ole Miss, and he's garnered the attention from LSU and Florida, who are both making a big run at getting him. I've heard other places named as like potential places, but it seems like the only places that are heavily rumored as a legitimate possibility would be the LSU Tigers, the Florida Gators, or the Ole Miss Rebels, and of course all three of them are located in the Southeastern Conference in the SEC. This is a tough decision for Lane, and the way they have the transfer window set up for college football right now, if he would accept one of these jobs, he most likely would not be able to coach Ole Miss throughout the playoffs because of the transfer window, because of recruiting, because of all that stuff, trying to get ahead of next year. They have early National Signing Day here soon. So all that stuff would be very difficult and almost impossible for Lane Kiffin to remain at Ole Miss through the playoffs if he accepted a job at Florida or if he accepted a job at LSU. And this is just, it's a tough decision. LSU and Florida, I would consider, a lot of people would consider them blue bloods. They're just big time part of college football. Like those are like the big programs of college football. You got Florida, you got LSU, you got Alabama, you got Texas. You got some of these schools that are just synonymous with having success in college football, that have a lot of money too, and that also get great recruits. Like there's a lot of great recruits in Florida. There's a lot of great recruits in Louisiana. So there's a lot of reasons why Lane Kiffin, and they're probably offering more money than Ole Miss. There's a lot of reasons why Lane Kiffin should accept those jobs. But me personally, I think he should stay at Ole Miss. This has been the most success he's had throughout his career, and he's been to a lot of places, and he's had success, whether it's short term or long term, at a couple of places. and he's also had failures at a lot of places too. But it seems like he's very happy where he's at. He seems like they're having a lot of success, and he's the face of that program. He's the face of that program. Ole Miss and the Rebels and everybody that is associated with Ole Miss love Lane Kiffin right now. But if Lane Kiffin would decide to leave for a rival in the SEC like LSU or Florida and potentially abandon Ole Miss for a playoff run, I think he'd be the most hated person in all of Mississippi at that point. I think they would probably burn this. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but they'd burn the stadium down because of this. It's just, I wouldn't blame him. I would be mad as hell if I was an Ole Miss fan and Lane Kiffin left for LSU or Florida, because he's getting Ole Miss to almost, I wouldn't say they're blue blood, but they're getting to that, especially in this generation of college football. I don't think blue blood is necessarily really a thing anymore. Like, obviously, it's going to linger for a little bit, but 10, 15 years from now, I could potentially see college football teams having success that have never had success in college football before. Like, who knows? Maybe the Duke Blue Devils go win the 2035 national championship or something like that, just because it's the way college sports and college football are moving towards. And he is the face of that franchise, that program. And I just don't think he should leave. I really don't. I don't think it'd be stupid necessarily for him to leave, because I think he will find success at LSU or Florida. The first year or two would probably be tough, but after a year or two, he'd probably find a lot of success at those programs, at those universities. But he's built something very special at Ole Miss. This is the greatest time to be a Rebels fan, and I think it would be a spit in the face to a lot of those Ole Miss supporters and a lot of those Ole Miss boosters and fans of the Rebels. I think it would just be very unfortunate for them, and I would hate to see it, especially for the playoff, especially with those rules attached to the college football playoff, where they can take into account if they lose their coach or if they lose important players to the transfer window. They can take that into account and eliminate teams from the playoff. So that's interesting, and that would be, Ole Miss would really hate him at that point. If Ole Miss are pretty much locked into a playoff spot, then he leaves, and then the playoffs decide to put Vanderbilt, for example, in front of Ole Miss or something like that. That'd be crazy. And speaking of the playoff, before we actually do finish up this episode of Off Track Sports, I do want to briefly talk about the bracket that has been released, the updated rankings for the college football playoff bracket. A couple teams that I want to note that aren't currently part of this bracket that could join the bracket at the end of this week or at the end of championship week. Utah for sure and BYU. Those two teams are very talented, very good, and especially BYU. BYU only have one loss, and that one loss was to Texas Tech, who are one of the best teams in the country, and that was their only loss all season long. Utah, like I said, they've had a great year. Vanderbilt, I think for the most part, have had a great year, but have also had a very difficult schedule compared to a lot of these higher up teams that are competing for the college football playoffs. And Diego Pavia had an amazing game last week. I think he had 6 touchdowns and almost 500 yards or something crazy like that. So he's getting himself back into the Heisman conversation as well. So I think they're in consideration as well to get one of these spots. And then SMU, UVA, Pitt, the teams over in the ACC, because most likely Miami's not going to be in the ACC championship, and most likely Miami won't be in the college football playoffs. I think there's an argument to be made with Notre Dame, obviously, because Miami beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame are ranked ahead of Miami. I think they're taking a lot of other things into account as well. I personally agree, though. I think Miami probably should be above Notre Dame. They beat them heads up, and I think that's the best way to see if a team's better is by beating them heads up, even if it was really early on in the season. Other than that, I don't think I have any disagreements with this 12-team bracket. You got Tulane up there in the 12th spot. James Madison is right there. I would like to see James Madison make it, of course. Being a Virginia school, I would love to see them in there, but we'll have to see. But overall, I'm okay with this college football playoff bracket. I'd probably have A&M number 2. I think that still bothers me. I think A&M should probably be number 2, and Indiana should be number 3, just because of the strength of schedule. But other than that, I don't think I have any problems with that at all. I don't think I have problems with the bracket that they've released for the college football playoffs.